Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the first case of its kind for the sexual offence of stealthing in Scotland. An aspiring actor is jailed for 16 years for a series of rapes and sexual offences.
This is a very substantial sentence that's been given appropriately, I think, when you look at the scale and level of his behaviour.
Also on tonight's programme, more fallout from the UK government's decision not to pay women born in the 1950s compensation for pension changes.
I feel like we're being cast aside, we're expendable. Yeah, I think that they think that we're just dying off and if they wait long enough, we'll all be gone.
With anger from Waspi women rising, the Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar is at odds with the Prime Minister, saying it is the wrong call. A police officer who knocked down and killed a woman in a marked van is ordered to do unpaid work.
Coming up in tonight's sport, the Scottish FA's head of referees admits Rangers should have been awarded a penalty in their League Cup final defeat to Celtic.
And we wish you a wonky Christmas. The Fife town filled with festive glow thanks to lights designed by local primary school kids. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. In what's believed to be the first case of its kind in Scotland, a man has been jailed for rape after he deceived his partner into believing he had used a condom while having sex. Luke Ford was found guilty of 7 charges of rape, including one involving the act known as stealthing. Ford was an aspiring actor who claimed online to have been a body double for Brad Pitt during filming in Glasgow. Prosecutors say he manipulated women and showed a disregard for consent. He was given a 21-year extended sentence, including 16 years in jail. Our news correspondent Jamie McIver reports.
This is Luke Ford, an actor and model from Stirling. He'd entertained dreams of stardom.
Let's go, follow me.
And this is one of his many online videos. Now he's beginning a lengthy jail sentence for a litany of sexual and violent offences. A total of 19 charges involving violence, sexual assault, threats and abuse. These included 7 rape charges. Today he was sentenced.
Applying the principle of totality, I consider that a custodial term of 16 years is appropriate. In the light of the information I have been given about the risk you pose to women, I consider that an extension period of 5 years is appropriate. I accordingly pronounce an extended sentence of 21 years.
Ford had 9 victims over a 12-year period. He'd targeted women through dating apps. His trial took place last year here at the High Court in Glasgow. The court heard he'd smashed one partner's head on a car window and slapped another hard across the face. He also took pictures of several women, often without their knowledge, then threatened to share them unless they did as he said.
This is a very substantial sentence that's been given appropriately, I think, when you look at the scale and level of his behaviour, predatory behaviour over a number of years. And I would like to pay tribute to the women who have had the courage to come forward and go through what can be really quite a difficult, traumatic process to seek justice.
One of Ford's convictions is a first in Scotland. It's for what's known as stealthing, having unprotected sex without the victim's consent. Ford hadn't used a condom the woman gave him. When she found this out, Ford told her to take a morning after pill or have an abortion if she became pregnant.
Up until now, people who have experienced stealthing have possibly been unsure about, is it a crime? And if it's a crime, what do I do? What crime is it? Although they know the behaviour they've experienced, they experienced the violation, they don't know whether or not it's something they can go to the police about. So I hope this case will send a really clear message to victims to come forward.
Ford was given a 21-year extended sentence with 16 years in custody. His name will also be on the sex offenders register indefinitely. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
The Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar says the decision not to compensate so-called Waspi women over changes to the state pension age is wrong. He agrees the UK government was right to apologise, but has expressed disappointment that no payments are to be offered to the women who've been worst affected. It's not only proving an issue between Scottish and UK Labour, but across the political spectrum as well. Our political correspondent Kirsten Campbell reports.
Susie Arnott is the Waspi campaign coordinator for the Scottish Borders, one of thousands of women born in the 1950s who weren't properly informed of an increase in the state pension age. She says the Labour government's decision not to offer compensation is a real body blow.
I feel like we're being cast aside, we're expendable. Yeah, I think that they think that we're just dying off and if they wait long enough, we'll all be gone.
Scottish Labour ministers have had to face up to constituents who feel they've been led up the garden path.
A lot of women did know about it, and therefore to come up with a sort of flat compensation fee that would total more than £10 billion is not a good use of public money at this time.
This is now the defining characteristic of this one-trick phony Prime Minister who says one thing and does another.
The SNP wants to see the UK government held to account.
There should be a vote in this place as soon as possible in the new year to flush out each and every one of those Labour MPs who was shameless enough to stand behind a plaque saying that they backed the Waspi campaign, but who are now, of course, backing Keir Starmer's spineless government that has betrayed these women.
There are a lot of unhappy Scottish Labour politicians coming off the back of similar choices about the affordability of the winter fuel payment and lifting the two-child benefit cap. It's left many feeling frustrated and facing questions about whether they will back or challenge this policy. The party leader says the Prime Minister knows how he feels.
I think they're right on the apology. I think they're right on recognising the injustice. I think they're wrong on the compensation. And I recognise the public finances. I recognise that there are not tens of billions of pounds available. But I think some kind of compensation package that could have looked at targeted support, incremental support, tapered support would have been a fairer approach rather than a blanket no compensation.
For the Waspi women, the campaign continues, with a protest planned outside the Scottish Parliament tomorrow. Kirsten Campbell, reporting Scotland, Holyrood.
A police officer who killed a woman after he struck her while speeding in his patrol van has been ordered to carry out unpaid work. PC Jamie Hamill fatally injured Margaret McCarran in Motherwell in September 2021. Police Scotland says its Professional Standards Department will consider misconduct proceedings in the case. Suzanne Allen has more.
PC Jamie Hamill was driving a Ford Transit van doing 39 miles per hour in a 30 zone when he struck Margaret McCarran, who was trying to cross Mary Street in Motherwell. She was immediately taken to the University Hospital in Wishaw for treatment, where she died a short time after arriving. Last month, here at Hamilton Sheriff Court, PC Hamill pled guilty to causing death by careless driving. This morning, the Sheriff Louise Gallagher told PC Hamill that she took into account his remorse over Mrs McCarran's death, but said at the time of the collision he wasn't responding to an emergency incident. She described Margaret McCarran as a selfless and kind-hearted person and said it is evident from the victim impact statements that the death of Mrs McCarran has left a huge void. Last month, her family welcomed the conviction, but said they were frustrated it had taken so long and that they wish PC Hamill had admitted his guilt earlier, saving the family added trauma. They've brought legal action against Police Scotland. Today, Assistant Chief Constable Stuart Houston offered his sympathies to the family. He also said, "As an organisation, we know how much damage can be caused to public trust and confidence in policing by the actions of those who do not uphold the standards we expect in policing. We are aware of the outcome in court, and the matter will now be considered by the Professional Standards Department for misconduct proceedings." In addition to the 225 hours of unpaid work as a community payback order, Jamie Hamill has been disqualified from driving for 21 months. Suzanne Allen, reporting Scotland, Hamilton.
A civil engineering company has been fined £860,000 after an employee was crushed to death at a wind farm construction site. Liam MacDonald from the Tain area in the Highlands was working for BAM Nuttall near Lerwick in Shetland in June 2022 when he died. The 23-year-old was cleaning concrete from a skip when he was crushed by a piece of equipment. The firm admitted breaching safety regulations earlier this month. A Reform UK organiser in Scotland has been suspended from the party following claims in a newspaper that he had family ties to loyalist paramilitaries and a sectarian murder. The Daily Record also alleged Craig Campbell had images comparing the SNP to Nazis on his Facebook account, which has now been deleted. Well, our chief political correspondent Lindsay Bewes joins us now. Lindsay, what more do we know then?
Well, the paper has reported that Craig Campbell's late father was jailed for the 1979 Ulster Volunteer Force bombings of 2 Glasgow pubs, and that he is the cousin of a man who stabbed a Celtic fan to death in 1995. It also claims he had images on his Facebook page which compared the SNP to the Nazis. That has now been deleted. We've been unable to contact Craig Campbell for comment today. Reform UK says it had no knowledge of these claims until it was approached by the newspaper. They say Craig Campbell is no longer an organiser or a member of the party, adding that they will not tolerate discrimination of anyone in any form. Now, this case has led to more calls for Reform to look closely about who is getting involved in the party. Earlier this year, they dropped 3 candidates over allegations of racist and offensive remarks. And really, Reform is saying that it is acknowledging that it has to look at this issue and perhaps do vetting more thoroughly, particularly as it seeks to build a stronger electoral force, not just at Westminster, but also here in Scotland too.
And can Reform make an impact at Holyrood, do you think?
Well, back in the general election, they won almost 168,000 votes in Scotland. Now, if, and it is a big if, they were to do that again at the 2026 Holyrood election, for example, that could result in a small but not insignificant presence for Reform here at Holyrood. Now, that is concerning not just for the Tories, who would be vying, you would think, for the same voters as Reform, but actually for all of the political parties here as they look to win seats in 2026.
OK, Lindsay Bewes at Holyrood, thank you. Now, we've already heard about the UK government facing anger for rejecting pension payouts for a generation of women. Well, they're also coming under pension pressure from former mine workers who say they've been forgotten. In last month's budget, the UK Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, handed back £1.5 billion to ex-coal miners and their families. But this didn't include workers in other roles who were on a different pension scheme. The UK government says it is looking at the second scheme. Here's our Westminster correspondent, Rajdeep Sandhu.
Anger and shock is how these men described how they felt when they realised their pensions wouldn't be included in changes made by the Chancellor. Bill Ogg worked in the mining industry for 37 years.
It was a bit of shock, actually. I think it was like a stealth attack. It kind of crept up on us. And then suddenly this light came on and said, wait a minute, they're exactly the same as us. They were treated the same at privatisation. It was only 2 different pension funds that run along exactly the same lines. So if it was righting a wrong for one, they had to right the wrong for the other.
Since British Coal was privatised in 1994, the government took responsibility for the pensions. It could take half of any surplus, and since then billions have gone to the Treasury. Campaigners have said that was unfair.
We've been angry since 1994 because this whole thing, we must be the only pension scheme in the country that subsidises the Treasurer. £3.2 billion has been taken out our scheme and went into the Treasury.
In the budget, the Chancellor agreed it was unfair, but only for one of the pension schemes.
Today, we are keeping our promise, so that working people who powered our country receive the fair pension that they are owed.
Previous governments have defended the arrangements, including in 2021 under the Conservative government, who said it was fair for both members and taxpayers. The problem now for this Labour government is that it has admitted that it wasn't fair. So is it really right to change the rules for one pension scheme but not the other? This Labour MP thinks the second scheme needs to be included.
This Labour government corrected the historic injustice of the miners' pension scheme, but there's a second pension scheme called the BCSS, and the members of that pension scheme are in a very similar position to the original members. And what we're asking for as a group of Labour MPs is to get the government to look into that scheme as well and address the same injustice that those pensioners have been feeling as well.
The government says it is looking into it.
The schemes aren't exactly the same in some of the arrangements that they have, but he is right to say that there is certainly a read across from some of the injustices that were in the MPS, and I know it's something that my honourable friend is looking at.
But for campaigners, they've already been waiting a long time.
We've lost 20,000 members in 10 years. We're losing 5 to 6 members every day because of their age group.
While there's hope for campaigners, time is of the essence. Rajdeep Sandhu, reporting Scotland, Westminster.
Now, senior councillors in Aberdeen have voted to start a fresh consultation on plans to remove a no right turn rule in the city centre. The council voted to make bus gates and traffic restrictions permanent back in October, despite fierce criticism from businesses and opposition members. However, another meeting had to be called after council officials admitted they hadn't given councillors the full picture, and the vote could be challenged in court. Phil McDonald has more.
It's this junction here where Union Terrace meets Rosemount Viaduct that has given the City Council a legal headache. Aberdeen, like many cities, has seen changes in recent years to reduce traffic and pollution, and one of those measures is the introduction of bus gates. Initially introduced last year, bus companies say that they have improved services, but many businesses say their profits are down. In October, the council voted to make the bus gates permanent, but agreed to remove a no right turn rule at this junction. But it's since emerged that council officers made a mistake. They failed to tell councillors that a fresh consultation would be needed before the change, so the no right turn rule currently remains in place. Now, the City Council's chief executive apologised for the error at today's urgent meeting. But one nearby shop owner I spoke to said that it's frustrating at such a crucial time of the year.
The outcome wasn't what we wanted as a business community anyway, and we saw it as a very small concession, and we were under the impression it was going to happen very quickly, and we certainly wanted it to happen before Christmas.
Opposition councillors wanted to push the issue to a full council meeting, but that was dismissed and the motion was eventually passed. Legislation dictates that the City Council has until January to make the experimental traffic order permanent, so the City Council has just 6 weeks to ensure that it complies with the law. Phil McDonald, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
OK, let's get tonight's sport now with Lewis. And controversy continues after the League Cup final at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Still talking about Sunday. It was a dramatic game, so plenty to still talk about indeed.
Well, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello there. The head of referees at the Scottish FA, Willie Collum, has told Rangers they should have been awarded a penalty during their League Cup final defeat to Celtic. Liam Scales was penalised for a foul on Vaclav Černý in extra time, with the scores tied at 3-3. Referee John Beaton awarded a free kick, but the Scottish FA say it should have been a penalty. The game's VAR officials, Frank Connor and Alan Muir, will not referee this weekend as a consequence of the error. Now, the chief executive of the SFA says football's governing body will clamp down on the growing use of pyrotechnics inside football grounds. Ian Maxwell says the association will use their rulebook in an attempt to change supporter behaviour. Maxwell was speaking at the launch of a new funding drive that aims to raise £50 million to improve facilities, but he was also asked about the topics of the day, including a recent increase in pyro and sectarian singing, the Saudi World Cup and the Scotland women's team. Here's what Maxwell had to say about fan behaviour and pyrotechnics to our reporter, Paul Barnes.
The vast majority of people in football don't want them at matches. Fundamentally, they're unsafe. They have a really negative impact on people watching the game. We're seeing kick-offs delayed. We're seeing numbers of people have to leave the stadium because of breathing difficulties. The players don't enjoy being in that environment because they're worried about the impact it has on them on the pitch. So we need to try and eradicate them. How we solve the problem is difficult, but we need to work in collaboration with as many partners as possible to make sure that we do it, because we don't want it within the game.
The SPFL have charged 3 clubs for this type of behaviour in the League Cup semi-finals. There was widespread use of pyrotechnics in the Scottish Cup final in May this year, an event that you host. Nothing really happened as a result of that. Will your tact and attitude to these sorts of incidents change going forward?
I think they have to. I think we need to look at the rule book that we've got and understand what the opportunities that we have to try and positively impact on that type of behaviour, because like you said, it's unacceptable that this happens in a game.
Something else that's been creeping into the game recently is an increase in sectarian chanting. I don't know if you were at the match on Sunday, but it was ringing out loud and clear. When you're sitting at a game and you hear that, what do you think?
Again, that's something else that we need to work with the clubs. There's an education piece around about that. It's something that we want to eradicate. We don't want any of that type of singing or chanting or unacceptable conduct of any nature at any match, and we'll work with the clubs, with the SPFL, with the authorities to see how we can impact that.
It's 2024. If it was chanting of a homophobic or a racist nature, there would be more done about it. It would be nipped in the bud very, very quickly. But it does seem to be the case that sectarian chanting goes on and it's widespread and nothing really is done about it.
It's one thing to talk about the chanting and because when something goes wrong at a football match, everybody goes, what are the authorities going to do about it? The real question is, what are we going to do about the individuals? What can we do to educate the individuals that are taking part in the chanting and make them aware of the impact that that has and make them stop? How do we positively influence their behaviour?
Could you not eradicate it by bringing charges and bringing punishment? That's what happens with UEFA. I know they have strict liability, you don't have that here, but ultimately, if you were to take action on the clubs that were the perpetrators, would that not be a first step into trying to banish this?
You've hit the nail on the head. They've got a different rule book from us. We need to work within the rule book that we've got to make positive change that we know we need to do.
Well, the Scottish FA President Mike Mulroney was also at today's launch. The governing body are putting in £5 million and hoping to raise another £45 million from government, sponsors and other stakeholders over the next 5 years to improve facilities for people across Scotland of all ages and backgrounds to take part in the national sport.
We recognised 3 or 4 years ago, in fact a little bit before that, that our infrastructure was dying, it was deteriorating, pitches were locked up, closed, getting built over, and we made a commitment that we were going to take responsibility for that, which is something the SFA had never done before, and we were going to rebuild where we could, invest where we could, and renew where we could.
Hearts boss Neil Critchley has urged his team to rise to the challenge of securing European football after Christmas and breathe new life into their season. The Tynecastle side were booed by a section of their own supporters after their defeat to Kilmarnock at the weekend, but a win over Petrol Cub in the Conference League tomorrow night would ensure Hearts finish in the top 24 and guarantee a playoff place.
We were going through all the possible permutations and all kinds of scenarios yesterday, and we gave up after about 5 minutes and just thought, let's just concentrate on doing our best to win the game, and if we do that, then we can put that to rest for a few months and look to then improve our domestic form because we've got a really important period coming up with lots of games in a short period of time.
Yeah, and the European football just keeps on coming.
Sure does.
And before I go as well, some rugby news. Xander Ferguson has signed a new deal with the Glasgow Warriors. So
good stuff. OK, thank you, Lewis. Cheers. OK, now let's go over to Lauren McKeever to find out what's happening on the BBC Scotland channel at 9 o'clock.
Tonight, inflation is up, but we will have advice on how to spend sensibly this Christmas. We're also joined by the artistic director at the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow, which is reopening with a stage production about the town of Lockerbie's response to the Pan Am disaster. And we will cross live to the Canadian town known as the polar bear capital of the world as climate change pushes them closer to civilization. We'll see you at 9.
Now, for more than 20 years, children at one primary school in Fife have been entering a competition to design their town's Christmas lights. The winner's version is then made a reality thanks to one of the world's most renowned decoration manufacturers. And as Katrina Renton reports, they're perfectly imperfect.
Meet some of the previous winners. Arlo, who's 9, won in 2021. Conrad, who's 11, won in 2022. And Mason, who's 8, was last year's winner. He took inspiration from his cuddly carrot and made it Christmassy.
On the top, there's a Christmas hat with a little
bauble.
Yeah, a bauble. And then there's a little smile with 2 eyes, which are black. Then we've got saying and waving his hand to say hi.
Over the years, kids from Newborough Primary have come up with all sorts of ideas for Christmas lights. Not always what you might expect.
My light is a fish, and I got inspiration from Newborough and its history of fishing.
Do you associate fish with Christmas?
No, but I think that's a good thing though when it comes to the light competition, because you've got to sort of think outside the box, I think.
Arlo was also thinking outside the box, and he loves dinosaurs.
A tree has baubles and stars, and a dinosaur and a Christmas tree are big, green, and all that. And so why can't a dinosaur have a star and a bauble in it?
The company that makes the lights for Newborough makes them for some of the biggest exhibitions in the world.
I love seeing the other things that we do, the Shard, Blackpool, the Champs-Élysées, airports, that sort of thing. But I also love seeing the fact that these people fundraise and they put the lights on and they work so hard during the year.
Over there is lamppost 15, and it's a really special place because every year it's where the winning light gets put up. And this year it's 10-year-old Lachlan's Christmas goose.
Lachlan was poorly while we were filming, but he sent us this message.
I just thought I should do a goose, but like Christmas themed, like with lights and a hat on it.
And the lights will be back next year. And this is a highlight for previous winners. Katrina Renton, reporting Scotland in Newborough.
How lovely. Well done to all of them. And talking of Christmas, Christopher is here. It is a week to go. I'm allowed to ask the question, white or not?
Not.
Definitely not.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is that what you were hoping for?
I was hoping for a white one.
Maybe the very tops of the mountains, but for most of us, probably a scene not too dissimilar to this
That's
one.
not too bad, is it?
Quite mild, actually, on Christmas Day, much like today, Laura. Thanks very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yes, we've had quite a blustery day with a fair number of showers, a few rainbows coming through at times, and a bit of sunshine in the mix as well. Those showers still with us through the course of this evening and overnight, coming in on brisk northwest winds, but with some clear skies, colder than last night. Temperatures here in towns and cities down close to freezing, if not sub-zero. The odd icy patch around, a bit of frost in places. And certainly looking to tomorrow, we still have those northwest winds, but high pressure trying to move in from the west. That means a drier and brighter day than today, but a colder one. So it's a chilly start and then sunshine gets going, but you can see showers working in across the north. Perhaps on the higher parts of roads like the A9, sleet or snow, but for most, if you catch a shower, it will be of rain. For many, it's a dry day tomorrow, a sunny day, but a chilly one. Temperatures by mid-afternoon, around 6 degrees probably at best. If you're in the breeze, feeling quite cool, I should imagine. Further north of around Perth, that's where most of the showers will be. As I say, most of them really of rain, just wintry in the hills and high ground. Windy around the northwest coast and the Northern Isles, strong to gale force here. Tomorrow evening, initially under clear skies, once again chilly, but then cloud and rain arrives. That's Friday's weather. So whilst tomorrow is bright and cool, Friday is cloudy and wet with rain working its way eastward through the course of the day. Winds now more westerly in nature. Temperatures up a notch with afternoon highs around 8 or 9 degrees. And then to the weekend, for many, the last chance to do some Christmas shopping, but you'll be battling the shoppers and the wind. It's going to be a windy weekend, deep area of low pressure to our north. We're likely to see widespread gales and the potential for some travel disruption, particularly on the ferries around the west coast. Frequent showers rattling through, temperatures pretty academic, 8 or 9 Celsius at best. Sunday is similar, some hill snow in the south initially, and then once again, fairly frequent showers and a cool feel, highs of 5 or 6 degrees. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you, Christopher. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. Fiona Stalker will be here with your late news at 10:30 tonight. Join her then if you can. In the meantime, from all of us here, do enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.